Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, Monkey Wrench. I'm Kelly, the monkey with the wrench. Today's video is the first video I'm making since we've broken 1,000 subscribers. I actually had a run of subscribers yesterday. We went from 960 to 1,100. So thank you to all my supporters as we keep growing on the road to 2,000. Today we're working on this Craftsman LT2000, and there's a few things wrong with it. The owner asked me to get it in shape without the deck on. They're just going to use it to pull a cart around a cart like that around the farm and do a few things with it. So I checked it all out, and one thing I noticed, we have a problem with the oil. So I'm going to drain that now and show you what happens to your oil when your carburetor won't seal. You have a needle and seat in your carburetor, and when it won't seal on a setup that has a fuel tank that's gravity fed, even though this is a 20 horsepower motor, there's no fuel pump on it, so it's gravity fed. And when your needle and seat are not seating correctly, all the fuel from your gas tank will run into your carburetor non-stop. The float valve won't shut it off, and it'll run through the carburetor and down into your oil pan. And what you'd be left with is nasty mess. And you can tell when you open the dipstick, when you pull the dipstick out, and you see that there's the full line and there's where the oil is. This thing has 3 times as much oil in it as it should. So my guess is there is fuel in there. Well, I was wrong. That should have come out like water, because it had so much gasoline in it that it would be watered down. This looks like normal oil coming out. So I have no idea why, but this thing takes about 1 quart and I think 1 quart and just under a half. And this thing was twice as high on the dipstick as it should have been. So somebody just put way too much oil in there. So while that's draining, hopefully that container's big enough. I guess this is going to turn into a how to change the oil on your riding mower video. Might as well. So now I'm just gonna unscrew. That thing's really on there. I'm just gonna unscrew the oil filter. Don't worry about the little bit of oil that goes on the ground here. I'm set up for it. So we got the old oil filter, and we got another new one. And all you got to do is take a little oil on your finger and go around that O-ring. Just wet it up so it seals good enough. Screw it back on. And since most of the oil is out already, I don't have to worry about dirty oil getting in this. Hand tight is usually good enough. If you find after the fact that it's leaking for some reason, you can always tighten it up, but that's it. Spin the old one off, spin the new one on. If this is your first time changing oil, if you look on your dipstick, you usually can see a mark, a line. In this case it's 2 dots. The one closest to the tip is the lowest point that your oil should be at, and the one farthest away from the tip is the highest point that your oil should be at. So when you're filling it up, start with 1 quart. It takes about 1.5 quarts. What I tell people is start with 1 quart, pour it right in there with the funnel, then give it 5 minutes to settle, because the oil will get blocked up in the fill, and then when you stick this back in there, you'll get a false reading of oil way up here. So I tell people put in 1 quart, let it settle for 5 minutes, clean the dipstick, check it again, see how low you are, and then start by putting in another, like a half, usually a third of the second quart. They all take about 1.5 quarts to 1 3/4. Don't overfill it. I can tell you right now, just like I knew on that dipstick, that is almost twice as much oil as supposed to be in there. That's why I assumed that there was fuel in it. And now I see that it's a little bit more runny coming out of there. So I am going to assume that there's fuel in there. I'll show it to you in a minute. Now there are some people that are going to watch this video and they're going to say, why are you showing a video on how to change the oil in a tractor? There's a million of them. Well, every single day as I grow more and more, 150,000 views, I get brand new people that come to my channel. People that have never looked for videos on YouTube. So it's up to me to make as many videos as I can, even basics for beginners, for people the first time around who have never changed the oil on a riding mower. Now sometimes here you will get where you need a socket or a wrench to take that off, but this one just happens to be one of these plastic quick release caps that just twist on. I don't like them, but that's kind of the way it works sometimes. Now let me back this back out. I can tell you right now that there's way more oil in there than it's supposed to be, so even though it's not as thin as I thought, I believe it's mostly gas that was in there. So as you can see on this side, I have kind of jacked up the back of the mower to get as much oil as I can to this side so that it drained out all the way. Now that it's done draining, all you got to do is put your cap back on. Like I said, this one just clicks on. Easy peasy. Make sure everything's on the way it's supposed to be. And now all I have to do is fill it back up with oil. For those of you that don't realize, this cap comes off the end. And what you do is this plastic sleeve twists counterclockwise. There's a little groove right here. So you twist it and pull it out, and that's what releases the oil. So I twisted it. Now I pull it out. And you should be able to see that. So when you want to close it, push it back in and twist it clockwise. Then put your cap back on. That's all. This is a very big bowl. I don't remember off the top of my head the size of the bowl that it is, but it's the big bowl that I use to work on these. It's a bowl for making sketty, stuff like that. It's really big. There's at least 2 quarts, 2.5 quarts in there. It's way too much. So all that's left is putting oil in. Stop it. Now the problem with people buying their own stuff, if you run a shop, is you never know what kind of crap they're going to come up with. This person went to Rural King. They drove an hour away from here to Rural King because they thought they were going to save money. And Rural King talked them into buying this crap they don't need for a tractor they're barely going to use. Anyway, it's 30 weight oil. This is 1.5 liters or 1.5 quarts. So I'm just going to go ahead and put most of this in. Make sure you use a funnel to keep things clean. If you're working for a customer, wipe everything up when you're done. It's just that easy. Like I said, I'm going to put most of this in. And even though this is 1.5 liters or 1.5 quarts, and I know that's how much it takes, I'm still going to hold a little back, let it settle out for a minute, and then double check it. Now I poured that out of that bowl. And I can tell you right now, it should not be sloshing around like that. Okay? That's sloshing around like water. Oil doesn't do that. Oil is nice and thick. That's full of gasoline. So the problem with it, and people don't realize, is that if you get gasoline in your oil, well, gasoline dissolves oil. It cuts it down to nothing. It takes away its viscosity. Then it won't cool the engine. If it won't cool the engine, you're going to run the engine for 10-15 minutes. It's going to get hot. You're going to seize the engine, and your mower is not going to be any good. So what I tell people is check your oil every single time you use the machine. If you're a commercial guy and you know, you're out there cutting 8 or 10 or 12 pieces of property a day, you don't have to check it every time you fire it up. But every morning you should check the oil before you leave the shop. If it's your tractor, you never know when that needle and seat's going to stop sealing. You might come out and go to start it and go, oh, I'm out of gas. I could have sworn I put gas in it last time I used it. And that's about as far as you'll think about it. The reason it's out of gas is all the gas drained from the tank through the carburetor into the engine and filled your oil pan, made your oil no good. So all you think is you're out of gas, and you go to run it, and 15 minutes later it starts smoking and making noises, and then all of a sudden it shuts off and it never starts again. Because you're not going to rebuild a motor like that. If you burn this thing up with no oil in it, seize it, snap a piston, the inside of your engine explodes. Why? Because you were too lazy to check the oil, which takes all of 2 seconds before you start. And carburetors are not on cars anymore, so people forget this stuff. They never pay attention to carbureted stuff anymore. That's why it gets so much business. Used to be every car up until the 90s had carburetors in them. If you got in your car and you knew you had a half tank of gas and you get in the car this morning and it's empty, well, then you know you have a problem. But cars have fuel pumps. On these machines, there's no fuel pumps. So if you have a machine like my zero turn, it has to pump the fuel from the tank into the carburetor. Then it doesn't matter if your carburetor went bad or not. But if you have a gravity feed where your tank is higher than your motor, in that case it is, and there's no fuel pump, all you have is your line that goes straight from the tank to the carburetor because it's gravity fed. So if that thing went bad, this big old 20 horsepower would get hot in about 15 minutes and explode or seize up on you, and then this whole thing is a paperweight. Check your oil. It's just that simple. If you do it every time before you start the machine, you'll never burn it up or blow it up. And now all I'm going to do is wipe my dipstick, put it back in the hole, give it a twist to lock it in place, and then pull it out. If we hadn't waited, there could be oil clear up the side of this thing because it stays in the funnel that goes down to the bottom of the engine, and then this slides right through it. But in this case, don't know if you'll be able to see that, I didn't put in the whole thing, and we are perfect. We are just a tad above the top hole. Okay, so we're perfect, and there's still some left. So in this case, this took a little bit less than 1.5 quarts. There's still a little bit left in there, and we're perfect. So that's it. That's how you change the oil. Hope that helps somebody. If you have any questions about how to fix your carburetor, if you come out and find that your fuel tank is empty, if you check your oil and it's way high and you can't figure out why, and you come across this video, you want to know how to fix the carburetor, I have several videos on this channel on how to fix that problem, but they're kind of mixed into another video where I talk about it for a few minutes while I'm cleaning one. So if you need something specific, leave me a comment below. If you've ever blown up a machine because this problem happened to you and you didn't know it until it was too late, let me know down below. Thanks for stopping by. Hit the like button, subscribe if you have a chance. See you soon.